Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a very fun theme team in the Great League, the Triple Overheat theme team. Overheat is the definition of a high-risk, high-reward charge move. It has the second highest damage per energy in the game, but after you throw it, it does debuff your own attack by 2 stages. The team I ran consisted of Galarian Weezing, Shadow Manectric, and Kanto Ninetales, and was a ton of fun to run. So without further ado, let's up into the matches and check out the Triple Overheat theme team in action in the Great League. Hopping to the first match, leading Galarian Weezing into Pidgeot. I'm going to be staying in this lead to start, and unfortunately the game lags a bit right off the bat. Thankfully it unfreezes, and I'm going straight for the Overheat. This will do big damage if it lands, which it does, getting the Pidgeot incredibly low. I'm going to let this through. At this point, Galarian Weezing has done its job. They go for the Brave Bird, in comes Manectric, and they respond with Lickitung. Shadow Manectric deals some absolutely insane damage, but it is very, very glassy. I will commit the shield on the Body Slam, farm up a bunch of energy, and fire off a Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs goes no shielded, but this is now in a range where an Overheat will KO. I go straight for the Overheat. Overheat able to land, taking out the bulky Lickitung. In the back, they have Shadow Victory Bell. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, picking up a nice lead, Galarian Weezing into Medicham. Opponent save switches into a Shadow Lapras, and this is a bit awkward for me. I don't have a great response to a Lapras switch in, so I'm going to stay in here, tank a Surf, and then fire off an Overheat. This way, I either grab shield advantage or deal a massive amount of damage. Overheat gets the shield. I'm going to bring in my Ninetales. Ninetales will take super effective damage from the Surf, but I do at least live 1. So I'm going to let that Surf through, and then I'm going to throw 4 Fire Spins and try and go for a CMP tie. I go for the Overheat. They actually go for the extra. Overheat does get the final shield. Lapras looking for the farm down. I'm able to reach 1 final Weather Ball, but this is debuffed, so it's not going to be enough to KO. So unfortunately, my opponent is able to take switch advantage from me. I'm going to bring in my Weezing just to force them to throw some energy, and now it's all up to Shadow Manectric. Shadow Manectric, extremely glassy, but has the potential to do absolutely unreal damage. In comes Medicham. Medicham is going to be firing off a charge move. I will commit the shield. I know an Overheat should one-shot here, but the downside is that Overheat does debuff my attack. I'm going to fire off the Overheat. Overheat takes out the Medicham. What do they have in the back? It's a Registeel. I think I need to Psychic Fangs into Overheat because a debuffed Overheat will not KO. I go for the Psychic Fangs. Come on, Manectric. Get there, and we just get outpaced. Registeel actually running Flash Cannon takes out Manectric, and we lose a heartbreaking game. Hopping into the next match, leading Galarian Weezing into Venusaur. I'm going to save switch into Shadow Manectric. They're staying in, so I'm going straight for the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs deals massive damage. Shadow Manectric just does absolutely unreal damage. They fire off a Frenzy Plant. They're staying in. And since they're staying in, I'm going to fire off another Psychic Fangs. This will, of course, get the guaranteed debuff, and it will KO if they let it through, so they're forced to burn a shield. At this point, I'm going to double shield and just snarl all the way down if they stay in. My opponent grabs the final shield. They're going to bring in their own Ninetales, and I'm going straight for the Overheat. This is resisted, but it will still do a massive amount of damage, and then I'm going to match their Ninetales with mine. I'm going to go straight for the Weather Ball. This is not enough to KO, but it will put them into farm down range. Weather Ball gets a shield. My opponent clearly not a big fan of my Ninetales, as they're investing shields to try and get rid of it. They go for the Weather Ball. That doesn't do a lot, but this should be the Overheat. And this Overheat is definitely going to hurt. That Overheat does a lot of damage. I'm going to overfarm and then fire off my Weather Ball. This will KO, and now I have an energy lead to hopefully help deal with whatever they have in the back. In the back, they have Dugong. I'm going to farm up. Opponent goes for the catch. I bank the Overheat. I should tank whatever they throw here. Venusaur only got to a Frenzy Plant, and I'm able to farm down. This is big. All I have to do is get to double Overheat, and I have the first one loaded on the Weezing, and the second one ready to go on the Ninetales. They're going to fire off a move, but at this point, this game is over. They go for the Icy Wind. They're going to get the farm down, but Ninetales on very low HP has the Overheat loaded. Overheat will be taking out the Dugong, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, sending Galarian Weezing into Scrafty, an incredible lead. Opponent save switches into Sableye, and they are core broken by Galarian Weezing. Let's go. I'm going to fire off the Play Rough. Play Rough is almost assuredly getting a shield, and then I'm going to bring in Ninetales. Ninetales does have some nice neutral play here. They're going to fire off a move. I live whatever they throw. They just go for the foul play, and they're going to fire off foul play number 2. I am going to commit the shield, and then I should be able to overfarm and then fire off the Weather Ball. This will be very close to Weather Ball range. I'm hoping that it's going to be enough. Weather Ball, barely not enough to KO, and Sableye is able to reach a move. That is not great, as now I'm down a shield. A definite misplay by me. I should have just gone for the Overheat. Opponent is going to bring in a Toxapex in the back, and suddenly this is turned into a nightmare because my team has zero response to a Toxapex. Toxapex is able to farm down. Toxapex is going to have a lot of energy. Unfortunately, the game lags a bunch. Game, please, not now. Here's where I do wish that I had Wild Charge. I fire off the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs gets the shield, and I'm able to make a catch onto the Galarian Weezing. They go for the Sludge Wave. That deals a ton of neutral damage. Unfortunately, I am fully walled by this thing. Both of my charge moves are resisted. I go for the Overheat. It does a lot of damage, but just not enough. They're able to outpace Manectric. Brine is going to get Manectric low. I farm up as much as I can. They make a beautiful catch onto Scrafty. And at this point, this is going to be game over. Hopping into the next match, leading Galarian Weezing into Shadow Victory Bell. We do resist the Razor Leaves, which is very nice. But this matchup is entirely dependent on landing the Overheat. I build up to the Overheat, and I'm going for the bait. Play Rough does get the shield. That's quite nice. I'm hoping that will lull them into a false sense of security, thinking that I don't have the Overheat, and then I can hit them with the Overheat. So I'm going straight for the Overheat here. Do they respect the damage? They do not! Victory Bell gets cooked. Opponent is going to bring in Bastiodon, and I respond with Shadow Manectric. Bastiodon is a massive problem for this team. I'm going to farm up a ton of energy and go for a Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs, not going to be doing a lot of damage, but it does get a very important defense debuff, meaning that this Overheat is now going to do massive damage onto the Bastiodon. Even better, we force the CMP tie. They undercharge the Stone Edge, and they bring in Wigglytuff, but I have Ninetales to meet the Wigglytuff, so I'm in a very comfortable spot here. I can farm up to the back-to-back Weather Balls, and 2 Weather Balls should be enough to take out the Wigglytuff. I fire off the first. I'm going to fire off the second on the CMP tie. This should just about KO, meaning that if they want to grab my shield, they're going to have to commit a shield themselves. And since I have the health advantage, I can fully Fire Spin down and leave with an Overheat, which is going to be enough to KO the Bastiodon. Typically, Bastiodon is a very strong counter against fire types, but today is not that day. Overheat, taking down the Bastiodon, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Galarian Weezing into Registeel. This is not the greatest lead ever, but I'm going to stay in here to start. The reason being is that I do outpace the Registeel, so I'm going to be able to reach the Overheat before they reach their Zap Cannon. Overheat will do a ton of damage if it lands, so my opponent commits the shield. I'm going to stay in, wait for them to throw their move, and then I'm going to tank it, and then save switch into Shadow Manectric. Shadow Manectric with an energy lead is incredibly deadly. They're going to stay in, fire off a move, and they're going to be able to grab a shield from me. They do go for the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon thankfully does not get the attack drop, and then they're going to respond with Swampert. Swampert is a terrible matchup for Shadow Manectric, but the nice thing is that I have a big energy lead. I'm already at a second Psychic Fangs, and that gets the Swampert into the red. Swampert farms up quite a bit. They're going to fire off a move just before I get to my next move. I honestly am perfectly fine with giving up the final shield here, because if possible, I want to try and deny their energy. I fire off the Psychic Fangs, they let it through, and they're content with taking their shield advantage. Opponent is going to bring in their Shadow Sableye. I'm worried I'm not going to be able to get to the Overheat, so I settle for the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs gets the shield anyway, and they're able to farm down. Shadow Sableye is unfortunately going to have Power Gem, and that's going to do a lot of damage. I bring in the Ninetales. They fire off the Power Gem. That deals a ton of damage. There, I make a mistake. I should have banked a Weather Ball, but I don't. And as you're going to see, this is going to end up costing me. I fire off that move. It takes out the Sableye. I'm able to reach the Overheat, but Overheat from Weezing does not one-shot Registeel. It gets them very low, but they are able to farm me down. And since I did not bank a move, Registeel is able to take me out with a Zap Cannon, and we lose a close game. Hopping into the next match, leading Galarian Weezing into Frostlass. Always nice to see an Ice type when you're running a triple Overheat team. I'm going to stay in, go straight for the Overheat, and then if they shield it, I'm going to be save switching into Shadow Manectric. Overheat gets the shield, in comes Shadow Manectric, and my opponent responds with a Shadow Swampert. Shadow Swampert, definitely scary, but these Psychic Fangs are going to do so much damage onto Swampert. Swampert fires off the Hydro Cannon, but I have a shield advantage here. So I'm going to commit the shield and start applying a ton of pressure. I try and go for CMP. My opponent recognizes what I'm doing, and they go for the extra. I fire off the Psychic Fangs. Swampert goes for the Mud Shot down, and that is going to cost them. Psychic Fangs takes out the Swampert, winning me switch advantage and shield advantage. Back in comes Frostlass. I bring in the Ninetales. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, leading Galarian Weezing into Toxicroak. Toxicroak is definitely an awkward Pokemon for this team to see, since the entire team takes super effective damage from ground. I fire off the Play Rough, that deals a ton of damage. Honestly, I can just shield once and farm down, and this way I leave very healthy and with quite a bit of energy as well. My opponent brings in Cofagrigus. I'm going straight for the Overheat. This will do a ton of damage if it lands. Opponent commits the shield. I bring in Shadow Manectric, and they're going to fire off a move. I do need to respect this, as Shadow Manectric will die to a Shadow Ball. They fire off the Shadow Ball, then they bring in Sableye. I'm farming up, and I'm going for the Overheat. Really hoping they let this through. Overheat does get shielded. Sableye respects it. Manectric is able to reach a second Overheat. This is debuffed, but Manectric is so attack weighted that it still almost KOs. Sableye leaves with a ton of energy. I'm going to bring in the Ninetales. Things honestly looking kind of scary for me. They fire off the return. That deals a ton of damage, and they're able to reach another move. I really needed to get that farm down. Down goes the Ninetales. It's all up to Weezing. Can an Overheat KO Cofagrigus? I'm going for the Overheat. Come on, Weezing. Kill this Cofagrigus. Overheat! Barely not enough to KO. Cofagrigus tanks it like a champion, takes down the Weezing, and we lose a very close game. Hopping into the final match, leading Galarian Weezing into Sirfetch'd. This is a pretty nice lead for Galarian Weezing, but I do have to be careful of a potential Brave Bird, and they are farming up towards a Brave Bird, so I do need to be very cautious here. Play Rough gets the shield, as that would easily KO. This is enough for a Brave Bird. I'm going to respect it with a shield, but it's only a Night Slash. That's quite unfortunate. Sirfetch'd again continues to farm up. Tough decision to make. I commit the second shield, and it's another Night Slash. Things going from bad to worse. I fire off another Play Rough. Play Rough actually goes unshielded. My opponent is going to take shield advantage. They have Skarmory, and I am incredibly happy to see that because I have triple Overheat users. I fire off the Overheat. That gets the shield. In comes Shadow Manectric, and they bring in Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff may be resisting the Snarls, but they are not prepared for the Overheat. Overheat nearly one-shots the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff goes for the farm down. They get it, but they leave on very low HP. I can just bring in the Ninetales, Fire Spin down. They bring in the Skarmory. They need a Brave Bird to KO here, but Ninetales is too tanky. A Brave Bird is not going to KO. I am able to get off the Weather Ball thanks to the defense debuff. Weather Ball will be taking down the Skarmory, and that is a good game. All in all, I had an absolute blast with the triple Overheat team. This is definitely not a team I would recommend for climbing, specifically due to the fact that it is triple weak to ground, but being able to land those nuke charge moves was incredibly satisfying. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.